Welcome to The Perfect Balance, where this is the podcast where we discover your symptoms are not the problem, with your hosts, Eva Vennari, Dr. Heather Kneale, and Leslie Brown. Join us as we jump right into this episode. Welcome in. This is the Perfect Balance podcast, and my name is Eva Vennari with the Elevate Institute. I'll be one of your three hosts today. We're going to talk about why your symptoms are not your problem. And let's introduce ourselves so we know who all is here.
Hi, I'm Dr. Heather Kneale, and I'm founder and co-founder and CEO of Global Nutritional Healing. And we offer certificate programs in mineral balancing.
And I'm Leslie Brown, and I'm founder and CEO of the Mineral Balancing Group. And we empower high-achieving men to manage stress effectively.
And I'm Eva Vennari with the Elevate Institute, helping people reverse burnout and fatigue. Fatigue is our number one concept that we want to talk about today because everybody thinks they understand what tired means. No. We're going to talk about that energy system that's part of our body that doesn't go away with a nap. All right, who wants to jump in?
Goodness, fatigue. It's a hard one to explain if you haven't been in that situation of just complete exhaustion. It's the type of fatigue that, and this is before I even started any nutrition program, it was the type of fatigue that just when you get up in the morning, you didn't feel rested, felt like you didn't even sleep. You know, that type of fatigue. Or with somebody, I remember my family wanted to come visit, and I just thought I would be in tears because I'm like, I have to blow dry my hair. I mean, that's so sad. I was that tired that blow drying my hair made me want, I did cry. I sat there crying. I'm like, I can't blow dry my hair for 3 days in a row. It's that type of fatigue. You can't explain it to people. You know, I didn't make appointments with people. I said the wrong things. Words would come out of I lost a lot of friends during that time because I would see somebody in the grocery store and I don't know why my mouth would just, like I was so tired, I couldn't filter. And I would say things, and later on they would tell me the things I said to them. And I thought, I'm horrible. But it was just because I was so, my brain, everything was, even just driving, I remember driving and I stopped driving because I thought I was sideswiping all the cars. And I remember going into this grocery store parking lot and looking at all the spots, and I kept bypassing them. And I had a baby in the back seat, and I kept bypassing, like, oh, my car won't fit there. Oh, my car won't fit there. I'm like, oh, am I going to be able to get it straight enough? And I just kept thinking I was going to hit a car, and I was that tired. So I just drove home. No grocery shopping that day.
You know, that's a good point to highlight there, which is fatigue is often accompanied by panic or anxiety. And because all this stuff that I'm sure we'll get into is really working on the brain, and we're just unaware of it. And so then you get that fatigue that is not alleviated by rest at all. You feel like your limbs, like maybe I remember feeling like I was moving through molasses.
Yeah.
I try to think and I go, I mean, I put that's what back when I sent checks, but I'd sign checks and put them in an envelope and seal it. Sometimes I have to open it several times to see if I signed it. Well, I knew I'd signed it and then I'd forgotten. I don't know. It's like you go into different personality lane, something happens. And that's very creepy.
Well, you're making me wonder how many people are diagnosed with things like OCD, which is that I got to open up the envelope to see if I signed it, you know, the compulsion to redo, or with maybe dementia because you're forgetting things all the time, or like erroneously assigned these different, now they're known as neurodiversities, or well, dementia is actually a degenerative thing, but to have those things diagnosed to you and labeled just because you're tired. And the fatigue, me too. I mean, it affected, I often say that chronic fatigue, anxiety, and insomnia are best friends, and they run around together.
Right. Holding hands.
Yeah, they hold hands, and they're running around with all of your energy and keeping it from you. It feels a little bit like victimhood there, but in a way you're at a victimhood of your own body's energy system, and you don't even know what you're doing to cause the situation. I remember discovering along the way the little things like, oh, you shouldn't be eating gluten, because gluten, after eating it, makes you feel chronically fatigued until your body can digest it. Well, that helped only a little bit. So this is part of the bigger part of the conversation, but to really dig into fatigue, what does that feel like? If you're an energetic person that can feel your own energies within your body, and I don't mean like I have energy so I can go exercise. I mean, you feel your own chakras, you can understand your energy systems, you know when something's out of balance, out of alignment, then it feels like the core part of you is just empty. There's nothing in the tank. Right? That's the best way I can use to describe it. And the adrenals in particular is what gave me that. I didn't know at the time, but fatigue, it is something that, because it doesn't put you in a wheelchair, people can't see and they don't understand.
You said
Exactly.
something when you said gluten, these labels that we get, people get, they call them diagnoses. And then that sends people down a whole line of thinking that in our terms with fatigue is really erroneous. It takes you down a path that does not alleviate fatigue, right? And so the gluten is an important thing for a lot of people. I remember I could eat a piece of toast in the morning and then I'd feel the fog roll in to my brain. And the only way I knew some ways to get rid of it, but I didn't want to do those. So I'd have to take a nap till my body could recover and I could get my energy back. I felt less fatigued. But then I could go down the path of gluten-free, and oh my goodness, that's a whole nother mess. That'd be a good topic for us to discuss sometime too.
Good, I'll write that down.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
But it takes you
It's
down
really
that,
good.
and you're still not feeling better, but you're like
Right.
really manically trying to manage this gluten. And that's not the issue. It's part of it. But it's like you said, I like what you said there, Eva, too, about like that core. You start to feel like, whoa, it's almost like those little, they used to have robot pictures, right? It's like, oh, you're
Yeah.
taking
Yeah.
battery
The Energizer
drain.
Bunny.
Batteries
Where it just
drain.
stops.
Yeah, and you sleep and it still doesn't go away. You need to get recharged and reinvigorated to get your life force back.
Yeah, and as
It's
we
true.
talked about in the sleep video, you need energy to sleep. So that's that catch-22. It's a vicious cycle, isn't it? It's terrible. Yeah.
It's
And
really
friends,
vicious
like
when
you
you don't.
said, they're friends.
Yeah, they are friends.
And that's the thing. We do all these things thinking that we're helping fatigue. You know, I know I was doing things like pots of coffee. I got to the point where I was up to 3 pots of coffee a day.
Pots.
Pots. We're not talking just cups. We're talking pots. That was for me just to get up and be able to do anything during the day. So, you know, I was changing my life to try to get rid of the fatigue, thinking it was fixable by, you know, not eating gluten and by doing other things that I thought were healthy, even though in the background, I knew very well that that amount of caffeine was not healthy, but it was like taking away, it would like pull the plug. If I stopped drinking the coffee, even like a few cups less, it'd be like pulling the plug out of the wall. You know, that's what kept me able to do some things during the day. So when people say they do stimulants or they do things, when I see that, I know it's because they're trying to self-medicate.
Yes.
They're trying to, and we do it in different ways. Mine was coffee, but people do it in different ways. They do drugs or they stay angry all the time. That is, you know, I've seen that with people. They stay really angry and mad at people, and that gives them the energy to keep going. So there's a lot of things we do, but we're, again, not really getting to the root cause of the fatigue. So, and I know you two get this. We probably get people, I know I do. I get people that I look at their intake forms and they're eating like perfectly. They're eating great foods. They've written down that anyway.
Yeah,
And
yes.
yes. And And they're not, they're not overdoing anything. They're going to bed, they're getting enough sleep. They're mental and emotional. They're not stressed. They're saying they're not all of these things, but still they have, I just did it today. I have somebody who has 40 symptoms. So if they're doing all of these things that really are, we know are helpful and healthy, then why aren't they better?
Yeah, they have that question just like I did, and I'm sure you two did. It's like I've changed everything, and I came up with a little story to explain it. If you don't mind, I'll share.
Let's hear it.
So I talk about the Leaning Tower of Pisa and how it took 300 years, to build it, because they realized in the first time they tried building the first three stories, it started to lean. They were building it on sifty sand. So in mineral balancing work, we talk about how the body receives toxins and nutrient imbalances from the mother in the womb. So you're not born perfect. Same thing with that ground, right? And so then 100 years later, new architects came along, and I'm going to use my worst Italian. Hey, let's finish the Leaning Tower, And so they add another 7 levels to the Leaning Tower, and they discover as they get more, more and more layers, it starts to lean more. And it's worse and worse because the foundation is off. Well, then they said, well, let's shut it down. We're not going to build. We're not going to finish it. Then they 100 years later decided in their best wisdom, well, let's finish it, right? So what they did is the same thing that we do when we decide we're going to get healthy. And at the very top, there's a little set of stairs, and those little set of stairs from the ground are built up more on one side and thinner on the other side, so that from the ground the whole thing appears level, even though the whole tower is leaning like that. Mm. So when we decide one day that we're going to start eating salads, we're just adjusting the stairs at the top. We're not getting to the root. Well, they did take some time. I love the story of the Leaning Tower of Pisa because they took 10 years, they shut it down. And what they did was they put weights on one side. This is the mineral balancing, and it's so perfect. They put balancing, weights on one side. They pulled out all of that sifty sand and they filled it in. They corrected the lean just enough to it's stable because they like their tourism, just enough so that they could fill it in with concrete. And the concrete then became that new foundation, which made the whole structure stable. That's what happens when you put minerals in your body. It makes it stable. Mm-hmm. And so that story helps people go, oh, I'm just doing this up here at the top. I'm not taking care of all of this. And that's the difference between, no, I know you're getting enough sleep. I understand you think you're drinking the right kind of water at the right time and how much and what temperature. I get it that you believe all of that's true, but let's look at it anyway. And a full audit of lifestyle, a full audit of everything. There's probably EMFs. We were talking about this before we hit record. I'm like, wait a minute, these are great things to think about when it comes to fatigue. What were they? So there's one of them was EMFs,
right. All the chemicals that are been made, the GMOs. I mean, what, the 80s, a lot of people, I know my mom's generation, they didn't even have genetically modified foods.
No.
So
just heard, go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just heard Mexico will no longer accept our corn because it's genetically modified.
Good.
Okay, so those GMOs are getting recognized by at least one nation, but I'm certain there are more.
There are more. France outlawed it or banned it. A couple of others in Europe. We can't sell. Monsanto was purchased by Bayer, and so Bayer is no longer allowed to sell their seeds to certain countries because they banned it. People are realizing that our human bodies are not built to digest this. It's no longer food. It's not nature made.
I used to buy all my flour from France because it didn't give me the bloat. And then I realized it was because they didn't do the genetic modification and use all those chemicals to desiccate the wheat and do all that. Yeah. I agree. Yeah,
we're sensitive and evolved. And those who are not sensitive to it, I don't know, maybe you're unevolved humans. I don't know, but.
Well, you can't. Sometimes you're too fatigued to feel the symptoms.
Right.
That's true.
It's just another thought, right? It's just another way of looking at it. And when you say, well, what is it that's doing, why are we fatigued? Well, it's the air we breathe, loaded with chemicals. It's the water we drink, super saturated with chemicals. It's the food we eat. And it's all in that. We talk about the air, it's the waves that are going through there too. in my opinion, and in our experience collectively, our bodies are under a horrific assault, and people are making decisions without objective feedback, which is why I am thrilled to have and utilize, and how we love to offer, the hair tissue mineral analysis, because it'll hold 3 months worth of the data of what the assault's been on the body.
Yeah.
And people make these decisions without getting any objective feedback. And I'll mention one time I felt fatigued and I tried, I went to somebody, what they did was almost put me into multiple organ shutdown. But I felt terrific, because what it did was it super boosted my thyroid. So I had energy galore. I lost weight. Oh man, I was having so much fun. And I was just about to hit that leaning tower, crash, bang, boom for good. And I didn't have any objective feedback on it. Oh, that sounded good. I'll try that. No, you need the objective feedback. In my opinion, thinking people, which most of our clients end up being very thinking people, because we clear all that stuff out of the brain that doesn't allow them to think anymore. And they value that objective feedback.
Yeah, I would say that that's true. And having a history of showing, look, there's an awful lot of information on the internet and out there in publications. There were people talk both positively and negatively about the impacts of supplements. What if supplements aren't the issue? What if supplements need to be applied according to what your body needs and not what some expert thinks that all humans need? This should be personalized. It should be different. Why? Because we're all born with our own imbalances and we all live our own lives according to our own environments, and we all respond to our own. Just the same way because you have two people that go to the same car accident. One ends up with PTSD, one is fine. So how we respond to our environmentals, and I mean that on all aspects, from a physical body all the way to our spiritual world, like that's individual. So why would one supplement recommended by some guy who's decided that he's, done the right research and everybody needs this and this is the new wonder pill, why would that work for everybody? Why?
Right.
So,
I'm trying to think what Dr. X, what did he say? Everybody taking the same supplement makes this supplements makes as much sense as everybody wearing the same shoe size.
Right. That's absolutely perfect. That's exactly what he didn't understand why you wouldn't use a test to figure out what your body needed.
Yeah.
Because if you go walk into the health food store, I mean, literally, you could buy one of everything. Woo.
Easily.
oh yeah.
People, go ahead. Well, thanks. You guys,
view. Yeah.
before we get live, oh my gosh, we're crazy. But I want to say, people don't realize when they're fatigued and they can't really think clearly, they're especially susceptible to marketing phrases. And those marketing phrases are designed to trigger you emotionally. And when your brain isn't working effectively, the cognitive, the thinking processes are interfered with, we are stuck in emotional do loop. It's a never-ending cycle that we just physically are unable to get out of. And so anytime those marketers trigger our, it's almost like salivating, right? Pavlovian. They use the right phrase, 3 must-haves, newly discovered, change your life, wonder supplement. All those phrases just trigger you, and we get drawn to it without thinking through whether or not it's supporting our body.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and the supporting part is the big thing, is like, are we doing the work or are we looking for a shortcut? And I have to say, on my journey, I only knew about looking for the shortcut because the work, as we just described, doesn't work when you are this out of balance. You need the full thing. And it's like, if what you're doing isn't working, then one, don't you think you would have done it if you could do it by yourself? Don't you think you would have done it by yourself already? Like, you should be successful. Get help. The other is
Right.
the other is, if what you're doing doesn't work, then you haven't tried everything. People come to me all the time with, right, and I'm sure they do to you, I've tried everything. You haven't tried this. You haven't tried this. And I bet you this is the missing link. And I hear that all the time from people. I go, oh my God, this is the missing link. It makes so much sense. I've done all my food changes. I've looked at my diet. I journal every day. I'm spiritually led. I listen to my guides. And I was just saying to my sister this morning that I need some help with my body, but I don't know what it is. And here you are. This happens all the time.
Yep. The phrase I've heard a lot too, probably because of the population I deal with. Leslie, I've had the best money can buy. All right.
Good for you.
It's not working though.
I
That's
must be
why they're
very
talking
proud.
to you.
Yes.
That's why they're talking to you, is because it didn't work.
Right,
You know,
right. And you
you know,
can
I
pay
just
me.
had,
But
yeah,
we're gonna
yeah.
do our best to get you well,
Yeah.
stick with you, which we
Yeah.
talked about that before too, that we're all mission driven. We really genuinely want to see people get free of this stuff and get well and contribute whatever it is they're supposed to contribute to life.
Yeah, exactly that. Because if you're living in misery, and if you really are, if you're in the place where we're all trying to describe as best we can, we've been, then you're so disturbed, you're so distracted by the pain and the agony of your body, the misery of life. You're thinking, why bother, right? You're not even connected to your purpose. You're not even able to see the purpose. If you have learned what your purpose is, you don't have the energy to execute it. And that's denying everybody else who needs your gifts. And I fervently believe that. It's like, what do you have that you're not bringing in that I need? Hurry up and get better.
Right. Exactly. And there's certain hair analysis patterns that actually can make it to where you're even not aware, you know, and that's pretty common in quite a few of the hair analysis patterns. But I did want to go back to, oh, go ahead. You have a comment. Go for it.
I was interjecting calcium shell being one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we get 4 lows, calcium shell, really low NAK ratio, below 1. I mean, I've seen it even below 2 with some people, but yeah, and then don't even get started on the heavy metals. Woo!
We're gonna not this talk, but we will have one.
Right.
Yes, we will.
So on different ones, we should probably do some on different ones. But I wanted to talk about, you were talking about how the genetically modified foods and all these other things that people are not sensitive enough to notice.
Yes.
And I know that, I'll give you an example. My husband, he's a contractor, so he's always out and about and working, and then he'll stop and eat out, right? Okay, so with all of his buddies, they eat out. And as I was cleaning up our diet and getting us, like, no genetically modified foods, no wheat, all this stuff, it didn't take very long, and he was eating those foods, and he's an awesome cook, by the way. So he started buying organic and all this stuff. So he would go out to, I don't even know what restaurant, really, I don't even know, but it was, a food chain. And he called me and he says, I am so tired. I feel awful. And I started noticing he would call me on the days he ate out. If I, but I said, maybe it's the food you're eating. Finally, he came home one day and he's like, I don't like you anymore, jokingly. He's like, I can't eat out. I can't eat out. He's like, that's what I do. I'm like, well, you got to bring food, or you can go to the health food store. They have chicken. They have all these, the Whole Foods. They have little meals. So that's what he's had to do. But, before, his body, he didn't notice it. He didn't notice that the foods were making him not feel good. But once he started kind of cleaning out the gunk and putting real food in, his body started giving him cues, like fatigue and not feeling very good, so he started getting those cues. So I think with a lot of people, it's, they keep pushing. They're tired. They just don't know. They're like, oh, I don't feel good today. It's a slow progression. It's never the, overnight you're just like, oh, I'm tired. My shoulder hurts today. I know, this happened yesterday. No, it probably happened 10, 15 years ago. It might even be your hip, who knows, so it's a progression that I think people are able, just one thing after another, one insult after another, that eventually they start getting high blood pressure. They start, getting high whatever it is, all these different things, blood sugar problems, their feet start swelling, they do end up with something. Eventually, your body does respond. It's just, we have to do something about it. And hopefully before we get to those points, I waited too long, but I hope that with these talks, we can get to people and help them before they get these symptoms.
Yes, and at least find out what might be assaulting their body that they're not even aware of. I had spent decades and I had no idea. Somebody would say fatigue to me, and I thought, I didn't even know what it meant. I had pushed so hard to get through, we're all type A's. I think 3 of us are all type A's. We're going to get things
Working
done.
on it.
We're going to move forward, right? Period. So no obstacle. You just don't acknowledge them, or you work over them, or you work around them. You move forward. That's it. And that's what we value. So when that happens, that we may not realize what we've lost touch with. So at the very least, I said, let's just check it. Let's just do the test and see what might be going on. So if our stories sound real extreme, which they are, and that's why we're all doing what we're doing, because we don't want people to have to suffer the way they did. And like we said before, be free to make your contribution to the world, but at least get checked out and have this be in your bag of tricks, along with if you've got to do your blood test and your urine and your stool test and saliva and all that, at least consider getting the hair tissue analysis is another important part of the puzzle, and what we believe is the missing piece of the nutritional puzzle.
It's the missing piece of healthcare.
Yeah.
And I fervently believe that it's a beautiful blending. It works very well with medicine, as long as the person, the individual, the patient, or in our case, the client, is the person who's in charge of the decisions and not letting other people take over. And I think that, social conditioning has an awful lot to do with what we allow in our experience also, because I started getting very sick at a really young age. I mean, I felt like I was about equivalent to an 80-year-old by the time I was 25. And I remember my dad saying to me, Eva, you're way too young to be experiencing all of these old age symptoms. And I says, well, that's very true, however unhelpful, right? So I think there's some social conditioning around, well, one, you're not in a wheelchair and you don't have a cast, so you must be fine. So that's an issue. Like not believing that people are tired, like really fatigued, it's an issue. And that age has something to do with it. Your age has nothing to do with your energy systems of your body. And there is no age. And I'm really fervent about this. You can see the passion. It's like, there's no age at which these types of symptoms should ever be in your experience unless you are dying.
And in fact, these symptoms are what aging is.
Yes.
Right? So you can get chronologically older without aging so desperately like people do. When we were talking about age, I'm remembering back also to childhood, and I remember the doctor saying, well, Leslie, as we get older, you should expect these aches and pains. I mean, my feet hurt so badly I could hardly walk, and everything on me hurt. I was 16 years old.
Oh.
And his counsel was, you need to rest and take it easy. No, it's like it's the missing piece. This is the missing piece.
I remember being counseled by a doctor as well in my 20s, my mid-20s, at the prime of all of my issues. And right before he turned his back on me and said, I think it's all in your head, he gave me these excuses. He's like, well, Eva, you were married young, you had 2 children, you've been through a divorce. And as he's listing off my life history as an excuse as to why I'm so tired, I said, time out. I said, I'm not the only one with drama. I'm not the only one living a life here. And I said, I don't see other people having these types of reactions to life. I said, what is different about me? And that's when he said, it's all in your head. And I know, I see the look on your faces and go, it's a familiar story. And how many times, that's why I had a podcast when doctors say, we don't know. How many times have we brought an issue to a doctor and they said, we don't know? For me, it was 10 years of going to the doctor, having them draw my blood, having them pull open the report afterwards and going, everything looks fine. It's within normal range. It must be all in your head. And we don't know. I said, why am I feeling this way? And they would say, one after another. I fired 10 doctors in succession over the years. And they go, we don't know.
Right.
Then we must be asking the wrong people for help. If like Leslie says, you've gone through and you've done the blood test and you've gotten the serious things out of the way, as far as it's not heart disease, it's not liver disease, it's not some other thing going on in the body that requires medical attention first. Like you get those things out of the way, it's not cancer, right? Then well, what is it? It's what medicine today doesn't acknowledge, and we fill that gap It's just so apparently missing, because I was reading an article this morning and I posted it on Facebook about America, the United States, is now the fastest growing percentage of not only obesity, but chronic illness. And then a little footnote to that was pregnancies and mothers to be giving birth, dying in childbirth or within 4 months of childbirth, because they don't have the fortitude in the body, the nutrients to overcome birth. This is a problem.
Yeah, to sustain life, no doubt.
That'd be
Yeah.
a good talk, Leslie. I mean, both of you,
Yeah.
Eva, to add on pregnancy, prenatal. We help lots of women. Prenatal
And
and
ADD,
pregnancy.
ADHD, because a lot of
Mhm.
people are plagued with that. They've got that label and they don't know what to do about it, right? I was thinking one
Yeah.
time, I had a friend who came up with this title to write a book, It's All in Your Head. And the negative part is what we just talked about. But the reality of it is a lot of these toxic metals love the soft tissue of the brain, and they get through the blood-brain barrier, and that's where they land. And when you're in trauma, a lot of these minerals that we talk about get leached out. And until you replace them, you're stuck in crazy land and may not even realize it because you're doing the best you can. So I think that could be a really cool book title. It is all in your head. It's not, it's all in your head. It is all in your head. After all.
Exactly.
But it's not what you think.
But it's not. Yeah.
I think this is the story of mineral balancing in general, is that we've been taught and conditioned, even the whole subject matter of fatigue, that it's somehow normal at a certain age. It's not at all. And this type of fatigue is not, I'm recapping because we're coming up on a half hour, but it's like, it is not something that you can take a nap or rest or go on vacation. How many times have you been so tired you come back from a vacation and you say, I need a vacation for my vacation? That should tell you something. Those are clues. Like, what other things? Let's wrap it up with, what other things can we look for that will give us an idea that we've drawn the line of what's acceptable in our life for far too long, and now we need to take action. What would be another thing? For me, it was vertigo. I nearly died in a car accident because I lost so much energy that as I'm driving down the freeway, the whole vertigo just took the road and made it swirl in front of me. Anyways, what other signs can we look for to stop?
Mental and emotional, extreme anxiety, extreme, different kinds of depression, levels of it, the mental aspects of what heavy metals and fatigue can do to your body and others. And this program does address. So that for me was the mental, emotional. I think my husband said, you have like 13 personalities and there's only 2 I really like.
So relationship problems, that would be a big signal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely.
Because people don't consider them. I had 2 symptoms I'm starting to hear people talk about, but it was body odor that smelled like onions or garlic, only to find I learned that's really associated with undiagnosed infection. But when we're talking about this whole topic, I would also say again, is that even if you don't think you need it, it is well worth adding this line of thinking and this line of testing to the information you have to manage your own body and health and wellness, and then eventually that of your family and possibly friends, right? It's try to, I would say, open your mind, open up the possibility that there's more than just the medical model. There's been a lot of money to support that, and we're not against the medical profession. That's not the case. It's just that there are other ways of thinking about the body that haven't received as much attention. So no matter what symptom comes up, we're going to tie it into a mineral imbalance no matter what, because that's what symptoms are, indications of mineral imbalances, period. But you may not be in a position to even recognize things as symptoms because you've pushed on for so long and so far and so hard and ignored what's going on in your body, or literally, as we said before, unable to figure it out or sense it, pay attention to it right now. So give yourself the gift of checking out mineral balancing just to see what story it might tell about what's going on in your body.
My blood tests were absolutely perfect when I was at my sickest time in my life. My blood tests were wonderful. and they were doing other tasks. And it wasn't until it progressed to a type of pneumonia that they finally figured out that there was something else was going on. But that's why I want to mention that when I got my hair test, I was happy because a lot of the numbers were off. So it was like, oh, okay. I had someone who couldn't explain it to me. But the hair test, what it's telling you is more as what's happening at the cellular level. Your blood is a transport medium. You get minute by minute information. I worked in hospitals. I loved blood, because you want to know what's happening and you want to help that patient at that time. But with the hair test, it's different. It's more of a timeline, about a 3-month timeline of what's been going on in your body. It's at the cellular level. So we're looking at what's happening at the site of metabolism rather than a transport medium, your blood. Your blood touches all your organs. If it has some toxin in there, it's going to be like, whoop, let's get it out of here. We don't want to touch all the organs, right? Your body's smart. And also at the expense of your tissues, it will take what it needs. So if it needs calcium, if it needs magnesium, or whatever it needs in the blood, it's going to take it from your body. So you won't see it in your blood until it's a later indication usually. So I just want to put that out there so that why would you want to do a hair test? It's just it's a different reading of what's going on in your body.
Yeah, great perspectives. It's always true that the blood is the snapshot. The hair test gives you a history. I like to call it rummaging around in the body's trash report, because we're seeing how we're processing out everything that's going in, and it's not just in the moments like others. So, all right, I think that's it for now. There is so much more to talk about, but we're going to do it on another day. I'd love to hear and see comments below on this video and this topic, and how might you describe fatigue for yourself? And we're here for you when you're ready. This has been The Perfect Balance, where we discover the symptoms are not the problem. I'm Eva Vennari with the Elevate Institute.
I'm Dr. Kneale with Global Nutritional Healing.
And Leslie Brown, the Mineral Balancing Group.
See you next time.